Hello everyone, welcome to the solution tutorial of Week 1 Challenge Healthcare AI as part of Bot Games Season 4. I hope you all had fun solving this challenge and also shared the results on social media. If yes, kudos to you. In case if you are not able to build it so far, it's still okay. I'm going to show you how to solve this challenge. We are going to select one of the approaches we have taken to solve this. However, there are many other ways in which you can solve. Let's get to the objective of this challenge. A fictitious healthcare company called Medicox provides treatment to a variety of patient conditions and wants to standardize its report generation process. The doctor analyzes the patients and shares his notes along with the medicines prescribed in an email with the medical assistant. The assistant then enters the data in a standard format to be shared with the patients. The challenge is to automate reading the doctor notes from the email, extracting the required information using generative AI, and then entering the data into the report generation application. Once you do this for all the patients, you can submit and then see your score. Let's take a look at the rules. The only rule you have to follow is to ensure you extract the values from the email body using generative AI service provider of your choice, or you can just use ChatGPT, for which we already have a package in our bot store. If you are using your own control room, then you can download this package and import it to your control room. If you are using Community Edition, this is already preloaded. Couple of tips and tricks. ChatGPT can respond to you in different formats. So be specific about the values which you are looking for and the format in which you want the response in. Also, if you plan to use JSON format, there's a specific package called JSON package, and a video is also available on how to use this package. I will leave the video link in the description below and you can check it out. Let's take a quick look at the entire workflow now. Here is the Healthcare AI challenge page. Your automation has to launch this challenge page and then click on mailbox. And now you'll see there are 10 emails, out of which 6 of them are unread. Your automation has to read the text from only the unread emails. For example, just click on this unread email and get this entire text in the body, send it to ChatGPT and ask for the specific values which you need. So those are the values which are available in the challenge page here. If you scroll down, you will see these are all the fields for which you need the values. Just want to add a note about this specific field called medication prescribed. You have to select this checkbox only if the doctor has prescribed any medicines. If he has not prescribed any, then you can just leave this checkbox as is. If there are any medicines, then select this checkbox and then based on the number of medicines which are prescribed, add it into these fields. If there are 3 medicines prescribed, then you add it into all of these 3 fields. If it is just one, you can just add it in the medicine 1 field. Once you are done with that, you can click on add and then start working on the next patient details. Once you click on this add button for 6 times, then you are ready to click on the submit button. Click on the submit button to see your score. As we have not entered any data, it is giving us accuracy at 0%. Otherwise, if you have entered all the values correctly, then you should be able to see the accuracy as 100%. Now we have logged into our Community Edition control room. So under bots, I've created a folder called Bot Game Season 4, and under which I've created one more folder called Healthcare AI Challenge Solution. To create a new automation, I'll click on Create a Task Bot and give it a name Healthcare AI Challenge Solution. Click on Create and Edit. Before we start writing the entire bot workflow, I'm going to use step actions here so that I can logically break the different sections into each step. I'm going to drag and drop 5 of these steps here. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. The first one, I'll use it to set up the variables. Second one, I'll use it to launch the challenge page and click on mailbox. Third, read data from mailbox and process it through generative AI. Fourth one, I'll use it for JSON parsing. And the fifth one is to enter the data and call it as data entry to the application. Click on save. Now, first we'll create a variable which can hold my API key. To click on plus, I'll give it a name as API key. I'll add my API key here. Click on apply. Next, I'll create a variable to store my application URL. I'll call it as challenge URL. I'll get this URL from here, and then we can either paste it here or I'll just leave it for now. And then I am going to use an action called assign under the string package. I'm going to drag and drop this under setup the variable, and then I'll store this challenge page URL and then select the variable as challenge URL. Next, let's launch the browser. I'll look for an action called browser open. I'll drag and drop this below the launch the challenge page. I'll select the browser as Google Chrome. And then the link to open, I'll click on F2 and select my variable, that is challenge URL. Click on insert. The next step is to click on the mailbox button. For that, I'm going to use an action called capture under the recorder package. Drag and drop it here. Select the browser and I'll refresh so that all the applications open will be available here. I'm going to select this as healthcare AI challenge. Click on capture object. And then I'll select this mailbox button. And the action I want to perform is click. So I'll select this option called click here. Click on save. Now I have my browser open with the challenge page URL and I've clicked on the mailbox. Let's do this manually also. Just click on the mailbox here. Now there are 10 emails here in which there are 600 emails. So we want to read the status of each mail here. As I can see here, the first one is unread and the second one is read. So let's capture this status of unread. Go here. I'll use another recorder capture action. Click on browser. I'll click on refresh and then select this Medicorp's healthcare mailbox. Click on capture object and I'll identify this field called unread. So the action I want to do is I want to read the text in that particular object. For that, I'm going to use get property and then I'll select the property name as HTML inner text. I want to store this into a variable. I'll click on this, create a new variable, and I'll give it a name as mail status. Click on create and select. If this field contains the status as unread, that's when we want to open the email and read the text from there. So I'll add an action called if. Drag and drop this if action below the recorder capture action, and I'll look for a string condition. The value is the mail status and choose the variable called mail status. Click on insert. If this is equal to unread, I don't want to match the case, so I'll uncheck this one. In that case, then I want to click on that particular email and I should be able to read that entire text. For that, again, I'm going to use a recorder capture action. Drag and drop it here. Select the browser and I'll identify the Medicorp's mailbox. Click on capture object and then click on this unread. So now I want to perform this task of clicking on this mail. I'm going to select this action called click. Now we want to do this for all the 10 emails. We want to check the status and then accordingly click on each one. So I'm going to use a loop action here. I'll search for action called loop, drag and drop it just above the recorder capture action here. I want to do this for 10 times and I will assign the current value to a new variable and I'll call this as nCounter. And now I'll move all these steps inside the loop action. So now we have clicked on this unread. That means I'll do this manually also. I click on this. Now this is the text I want to read. For that, I'm going to use one more recorder capture action. Drag and drop this here. Click on browser and select the Medicorp's Healthcare mailbox. I'll click on capture object and this is when we will have to identify this entire text. I'll select this text. What I want to do is like read the entire data. So I'm going to select the action as get property and the property name as HTML inner text. And I'm going to store this into a variable called sEmailBody. Click on create and select. So now we have this entire data from the email into this variable called sEmailBody. Now let's use the OpenAI Generative AI package and pass the data to the ChatGPT package and get the response for the specific fields we are looking for. I'll look for ChatGPT. I'll drag and drop this action called ChatGPT here. I'll select my API key, which I have created earlier. I'm going to select this S API key, click on S insert, and now I have to pass a message. I've already written this prompt which I want to pass in. As you can read here, extract the following key values: patient name, doctor's name, diagnosis, medicines prescribed, blood pressure, weight, height, blood oxygen level, and resting heart rate in JSON format. From, I have to pass this mail body variable here. And also I want to add one more sentence saying like ensure medicines prescribed are inside an array within the JSON. This is mainly because the response can be in different formats, and to avoid post-processing after we get the response, I want to add this sentence. So I'm going to copy this entire text here and paste it in the message. I also want to ensure that I have to add this variable called sEmailBody. I place my cursor here, click on F2 and then select this sEmailBody. Click on S insert. Now, once it is passed to the ChatGPT, we are going to get the response, which we are going to store it in a new variable, which I will call it as sGPT response. I'll click on create and select. So now we will have this response. Let's take a look at how the response comes. For that, what I'll do is like I'll use an action called log to file and add this action under OpenAI. I'll enter this path as c temp gpt response.txt, and the text I want to add is the GPT response variable which I have received. Click on S insert. I'll click on save, and once we have this data entered into this file, I also want to ensure I click on this back button so that we can read the next email. So for that, I'll use an action called recorder capture. Drag and drop this below the log2 file action. Select the browser, that is Medicorp's Healthcare mailbox. Click on capture object and I'll identify this back button. The action to take on this object is click, and I'll save this. So now we'll be back in the main email screen so that it can start reading the next set of emails. But before we run this bot to check how it works, I also want to make a minor modification so that it is able to read through all these emails, because when I've done the first iteration, it would have hard-coded this XPath value. So what we will do is like, I'll select this recorder capture action. First, we have selected to read the status. Here, as you can see, this is the XPath which I will have to change. So let me show you how this works. We have first identified the first email, and for that, this is the XPath I have received. Let me copy this XPath here. I'm just going to paste it here. Now let's look at the XPath for the second email. So click on recapture object. I'm going to read the status for the second email. And then I will copy this XPath and paste it here. As you can notice, only this is the number that changes. And we already have a variable called encounter, which continuously increments so that we should be able to capture this. So instead of this number 2 here, I'm going to add this variable called encounter. And then click on S insert. And because this XPath accepts only the string, I'll place a dot and then select number 2 string. Once you do this, you also want to make sure you don't have the path selected. So I'm going to uncheck this path here. Similarly, we have to do this for other actions as well, where we have selected the status. I'll again do the same. I'll just change this to encounter. Also convert this to a string and uncheck the path. Then go to the next action. Here we don't need to change anything because the entire body is visible only for one particular email. So when we go back and open a new email, it is again the same box which will contain the text. So we are good on that. So now let me click on this, save, and then let's run the bot to see how it works. I'm going to close the application which is already open, click on run. And before I click on run, let me just check that folder if I have any file such as that GPT response.txt. I don't have anything now. So now we are ready to run. I've clicked on run. So the bot is going to launch the challenge page. It is going to click on the mailbox button, open the mailbox, read through all the emails which has the status as unread. And only for that, it will send the data to ChatGPT and get the required fields as we have defined in the prompt. We'll give it a few seconds for it to run, as it's going to run for all the 10 iterations. As you can see, now it has launched the mailbox also. Let's go into the first email. Now you can notice that the information is being sent to ChatGPT. Now it is moving to the next set of emails which are unread. Okay, now the bot has completed its execution. So let's check the output it has generated. Let's open this file. We can see that it has extracted all the required information as expected. We'll double check for the array within the JSON here. So there are no values here, so that's why it's empty. It's okay. And then here is also looking good. So yeah, now we are looking good. So now we have this JSON format, which we will have to parse to identify each of the information for each patient. So let's go back here. Now we will start filling the step JSON parsing. For that, I'm going to look for a package called JSON. I'm going to drag and drop this start session. Next is get node value. And then end session. I'm not going to end it right away here. Instead, I'll just drop it below the step called data entry into the application and show you why it is required. So first, let's start the session. I'm going to select this option called text, click on F2 and select the variable sGPT response. Click on yes, insert, and I'll leave the default object session name as default. Next, we want to get the node values. So these are the node values which we can use from the output which it has generated. So let's select one by one the patient name. I'll add it here, and then I'll create a new variable to store the patient name. Click on create and select. Similarly, we have to do this for all other fields. I'm going to copy this get node value and paste it 8 more times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So let's start filling each one of them. In the second one, again, I'll select this doctor name here, copy it to the JSON node key, and then save it to a variable called s doctor name. Click on create and select. Now I'll select the next diagnosis. Select the third one. Add the information here as diagnosis, and then we'll create a new variable to save this diagnosis value. Now let's go to the fourth one and use this to store medicines prescribed. Come back here, add this, and create a variable called medicines prescribed. Click on create and select. Now on to the next one. Blood pressure. Create a variable, yes, blood pressure. Click on create and select. So identify the next one. I'll copy the information called weight and add it here. Create a variable called s weight. Click on create and select. Next one, to save the height, I'll select this value here, add it here, and then create a new variable called height. Click on create and select. Similarly, let's do this for 2 more fields, that is blood oxygen level. I'll select the last one, paste this in the JSON node key, and create a variable called s blood oxygen level. Click on create and select. And on to the last one. Let's do this for the resting heart rate. Copy this here, add it to the node key, and create a variable called s resting heart rate. So now we have all the values parsed from the JSON response from the ChatGPT and stored into individual variables. Now let's start entering the value into the report generation application. Let's go back to the report generation application here. I will scroll down and we'll start identifying each of these fields so that we can enter the data which we have got from the ChatGPT. Let's go here. I will add the action called recorder capture to drag and drop this recorder capture action as the first step within the step called data entry into the application, and select the browser, click on refresh, and then I'll identify this healthcare AI challenge. Click on capture object. I will identify this field called doctor name. And I want to perform the action of setting the text. And the text I want to pass in here is the variable called s doctor name. Before I do that, I'll just click on save. And since we need this to identify elements for all the other fields as well, I'm just going to copy paste this recorder capture action for 8 more times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Now let's come to the first action here. In the keystrokes, I'm going to click on F2 and select this doctor name. That is SD. If I type it here, it'll show me the variable name, S doctor name. Click on S insert. I'll click on save and then next start working on the other fields. Second recorder capture action. I'll click on recapture object here and now identify the patient name here. So now I want to pass the patient name variable here in the keystrokes action. So I'll click on F2 and then select SP. It should give me the option S patient name. Click on S insert. Third one, click on recapture object. Now I'll select the weight. And in the enter keystrokes, I'll select the variable SW, that is S weight. Click on S insert. Similarly, let's do it for the other fields as well. Click on recapture object, identify the height object here and select the variable SH, that will give me S height. Click on S insert. Next field, click on recapture object, identify this blood pressure field and select the variable to be entered, that is S blood pressure. Click on S insert. On to the next one, click on recapture object, select the blood oxygen level field here. So in the variable, select blood oxygen level, click on S insert. Similarly, we'll do this for the other fields. Recapture object and the heart rate. Let's pass in the variable SH, that will give me the, probably I had this as S resting heart rate. So I'll select SR and then identify this variable. Next one, click on recorder capture. And now I want to identify this diagnosis summary field. In the keystrokes, I'll click on F2 and then select SD. That will give me the S diagnosis. Click on S insert. Now on to the last one. Now I want to identify this checkbox called medication prescribed. So I'll select this checkbox. I just want to select this checkbox. So I'll identify the option as check here. Click on save. So now all the other fields are simple because it will just have one piece of information to be added. Whereas medication prescribed is a different kind of field, because let's take this example. The medicines prescribed has two values as part of this array. Similarly, if we see the second one, it also has two values in the array. The third one, it does not have any values. Fourth one has three values as part of the array. So we will have to write the logic in such a way it can read the number of data elements available in the array and then accordingly add them as individual medicine names in the medicine fields. Now we want to work on the medicines prescribed information. For that, I'm going to use a step action because it requires good number of steps to be added within that. I'm going to drag and drop it here below the data entry to the application step. So I just want to ensure this is all aligned. Now let's add the actions here. First, we want to ensure that the medicines prescribed is not a empty value. For that, I'm going to use an if condition. I'll drag and drop this if action in the step. I'll look for the string condition. Source value is S medicines prescribed. Click on S insert. Now in the source value, we have selected the variable called S medicines prescribed, which will have whether 1, 2, 3 values of medicines, or it may be blank as well. So first let's check the condition that if it is blank. So I'll leave the target value as blank. I'll also uncheck this match case. Now I'm going to add another condition and it will all be OR condition, because if one of these conditions are satisfied, then we don't want to check on that medicines prescribed checkbox. So the second condition, I'm going to do the same string comparison. I'll select the string condition. The source value will be yes medicines prescribed. If it is equal to, I'm just going to open and close the square brackets. That means it's an empty list. And I'm also going to uncheck this match case. I'll add one more condition in case if it contains the word none, because we have seen sometimes when we run this automation, it would come back with the word called none in case if there are no medicines prescribed. So again, I'm going to look for the string condition and select the source value as S medicines prescribed. And then the target value, I'm going to say none. I'll uncheck the match case because sometimes we have seen the first letter is capital, sometimes the first letter is small letter as well. So if any of these conditions are met, we don't want to check that checkbox. Otherwise, we want to perform some actions. For that, I'm going to drag and drop the else action for this if statement. Else, what do you want to do now? So now let's take that entire data within the medicines prescribed, and then we will start identifying each of those elements. To store all the elements within that entire list, I'm going to use the action called get node list under the package JSON. I'll drag and drop this get node list under the else section. And for the node key, I'll take the medicines prescribed as we have used this before. I'm going to copy this and put it back to here. And I'm going to create a variable called L medicines prescribed. So now it is of the type list. So it is going to store all the values which are within that list. We also want to get the size of this list so that we can identify how many medicines are prescribed. For that, I'm going to look for the action called size under the list package. I'm going to drag and drop this below and select the list variable. And I'll also create a new variable called n list size, which will contain how many medicines are available within that list. Based on this value, we can loop through each value and then enter those values into the report generation application. For that, I'm going to use loop action and drag and drop the loop here. In the loop, I'll look for list, that is for each item in the list, and select the variable as L medicines prescribed. And I want to assign the current value to a new variable, which I will call it as individual medicine. Because in each iteration, it is only going to pick up one value. To click on create and select and save this automation. So now within this loop, we want to enter that data into the particular field. When I go back to my challenge page, after this is checked, the first medicine should be entered in this field, which has medicine 1. For that, I'm going to use a recorder capture action. Drag and drop this within the loop, select the browser and identify the web page healthcare AI challenge. Click on capture object, identify this medicine 1 field. The action to take on this object is we want to set the text, and the text we want to set is available in the variable called S individual medicine, which I'm going to select now and click on S insert. Now we have multiple fields here, medicine 1, medicine 2 and medicine 3. So we don't want to hard code these values because we don't know how many medicines are there for each of the patient. Since the number of values in the list varies for each patient, we'll create a list counter variable so that we know that only for the first iteration, enter the value into the first medicine. For the second iteration, enter the value into the second medicine field. So now I'm going to click on create variable in the variable section, and I'll select this value type as number. I'll call this as n list counter. Click on create. Now let's look at the DOMX path for each of those medicine fields. For that, we have first selected the DOMX path for the first field. So I'm just going to copy this DOMX path into the notepad and just going to paste it here. Now let's look at the DOMX path for the second element. I'm going to click on recapture object and identify the second medicine. Now I'll copy this DOMX path again, and now we will look at the X path here. So now, as you can notice, this is the value which is changing. So we can use the variable which we have created, that is the n list counter, to increment this values so that accordingly the values will be added into the specific medicine. So I'm going to change this to here and remove, click on F2, select the variable n list counter, click on S insert. Because it can accept only a string, I'll click on dot and type toString, select this. And now that we have created a dynamic XPath, I don't want to have any of the other static values. So I'm going to remove this HTML ID, prescribed medicine, and path, and the HTML name. This way, we'll be able to enter the data into each of these fields correctly. And then, before we enter this text, we also wanted to click on that checkbox. So this is available in the last step before. So what we will do is like, we will drag this before the loop action so that once it is selected, and then for each of those items within the list, it will add the value. Next, we will increment the list counter so that when it goes to the next iteration, it should be able to select the second medicine. I look for an action called increment, drag and drop this below the recorder capture. The number is the n list counter. Click on S insert. I'll select the same variable n list counter. So now we are incrementing every time it gets into the loop. And we also want to ensure, like before it gets into the loop, the value is always reset to 1. For that, I'm going to use an assign action under the number package. I'm going to drag and drop this here and say, I want to assign 1 to the variable n list counter. That way, the value is assigned as 1. And when it goes inside, it will have the value as 1 here for the domex path, and it will be able to enter it into the medicine 1 only. Once these steps are done, next we will click on the add button. For that, I'll use the recorder capture action and drag and drop it here. I'll identify the browser, that is our healthcare AI challenge. Click on capture object. I'll identify this add button. Select the action as click and click on save. So now the last step is to click on the submit button. So here we have to be careful that we have to make sure that we enter it outside the loop, because we don't want to click on the submit button 10 times. So I'm going to look for recorder capture action again and drag and drop this here. Select the browser, identify the healthcare AI challenge, click on capture object and identify this submit button. And the action to take on this object is click. You click on save button. Now the bot is completely built. Let's run this. Before we run, I'm going to close this application, double check if everything is correct. Just double checking on the loop. So we enter the values. Also, one more correction before we run this automation. As we have used this JSON node list here, we don't want to end this session here. So let's bring this down. So that way it will still be active. The session will still be active. So here we are starting the session and then here we are ending the session now. Before we run this automation, let's make one more update to the prompt just to ensure the values are always dependable. So what we will do is like, we will go back to the OpenAI ChatGPT action, and currently we have this message written. So we will also add the specific field names we need. Like say, for example, I want the response back with the value as patient_name. The reason being, sometimes the ChatGPT can respond in different names. And that's when the automations will start failing, or we have to do a lot of processing. So what we will do is like, we will add this sentence in the format shown below, and we will also add this particular piece of text. So I'll just copy this entire text and I'm going to add it at the end of the prompt which we have created earlier. Now we will save this and we are ready to run. So let's click on run. This automation is going to take a while because it has to run through 6 iterations. So we will let it run. I will fast forward the video so that you don't have to set the entire time and just watch this automation run. We will give it some time for it to execute. And once it completes, we will come back and look at the results. You can notice that the automation has already launched the challenge page and it has opened the mailbox. Now it is reading through all this fields and entering the data into the report generation application. It's able to navigate to the next form as well. As we can see here, the automation has successfully completed the execution and the accuracy is 100%. Now that you have completed the execution, let me show you how to download your certificate. First, copy this unique code and then click on this arrow mark. It'll take you to a page where you can download your certificate. Paste this unique code which you copied from the previous page. Enter your name. Enter your email ID. And then enter your company name and click on download. You will see that in a few seconds, your certificate will be downloaded. Here you go. You have completed the challenge and also able to get this certificate. Now let's look at a couple of alternative approaches. We have used the ChatGPT action in which we have used the model that is GPT 3.5 Turbo. But you can also use the GPT-3 model along with the text DaVinci 003 model as well, so that whichever model is giving you better results, you can also use that. And next is about the JSON parsing. We have used the JSON package to parse this values. However, if you want to convert it into any other format such as dictionary, you can also do that. We've also seen some of the developers online have converted into a dictionary variables and they were able to save some of the time. Some of them have got the responses in CSV format and then they were able to parse them. And if you still want to improve the speed, there is a package called Web Automation Package on the bot store, which can execute this much faster, but you just have to ensure that you're not hitting the ChatGPT package at a very short interval time, because it can start throwing you errors saying like there have been too many requests in a short span of time. The goal is to ensure you build a logic which is kind of simple to understand and maintainable in the long run instead of just going for the speed. Speed is definitely required, but that's not the only criteria when you have to execute some of your automations in the production environment. So it is not foolproof. Yes, we all know that. Because this automation includes a generative AI component, you may face a couple of issues when you are building or even executing your automation. Some of the common issues which you may face is like HTTP 429 error, that you have put in too many requests within a short period of time to the ChatGPT. In this case, you can always add a delay so that you're not hitting the server in a very short span of time. Also, sometimes you may get 400 bad requests. So in this case, I've heard there are multiple reasons because of which you may get this error. One is like if you are consuming too many tokens, that's when you may get this request. And sometimes if you just rerun the automation as well, you should be able to resolve this issue. Do watch out our community forums and even LinkedIn for any posts to just see in case if others are facing any other errors, which you may also be facing, so that we always have solutions from your peer developers. Once you're done with solving this challenge, this is what we would like you to do. If you have not yet registered for Bot Games Season 4, please do register for the Bot Games Season 4. And after you complete this challenge, share a screenshot of your result and post it on social media using the hashtag BotGames, and also tag 3 of your developers whom you would like to challenge to solve this exercise. So this will make you eligible to get some cool Bot Game Season 4 swag. Our social team, our developer evangelism team is always looking out for interesting posts, interesting tips and tricks, and we will reward you with some cool swag. That's all for now. I hope you learned how to solve this challenge. This is Arjun S Meda signing off, and we will see you next Monday with a new challenge. Thank you and go be great.